beginners video series on glazes. So we're going to talk about Granny B's amazing glazes, and we're also going to discuss SCUMBLE and how to create your own glaze using that amazing product as well. We're going to guide you through all the techniques and tools and applications throughout this video to help you get started on your glazing techniques. So first I would like to introduce the 4 colors from the amazing glaze line: black, white, aged, and antique. Now these 4 different shades are going to give you different results depending on what you want to put it on, the background color that you start with, and also the look that you want to go for. Now I've painted this table using the Val de Charonne chalk paint designer line. This is Wind Pump. And this frame was originally painted in the same exact color, and I applied the white amazing glaze to the paint finish. So you can see the drastic difference between what it used to look like and what it looks like now. So I'm going to demonstrate how to apply it and also the tools that you need to use for your glaze application. Where I like to use the Hamilton synthetic brushes, and depending on the size of your product or project, you'll choose the brush size. And you'll also want something to decant the glaze into. And now with this process, you can add a little bit of water to it, or you don't have to. It depends on the climate. If you're in a warmer, dry climate, you might want to add a little bit of water to it just to make it spread a little bit thinner, and it's easier just to move around and wipe back once you do, but it's not necessary. And then I also like to use rags, and I like to cut up old t-shirts. T-shirt cloth is my favorite. If I use the terry cloth or anything with like a texture in it, the texture does show up in the glaze, and sometimes those little fibers come off into the glaze as well. I find that the t-shirt material wipes it back nice and smooth, and you have a lot more control over the finish once you do. So that's just a personal preference, but that's really what I recommend. And we're going to get started on applying the white glaze to this table. Okay, so again, I've taken some of the white glaze and I put it in a little container just to keep it separate, and in case you want to just kind of fit your brush in here, you use a larger brush, it's always nice to use a separate container. I'm using my Hamilton synthetic brush, okay, and I'm just going to dip the ends of the brush in. You don't need to get a lot onto the brush. You really just want it on the very tips. And then what I'm going to do is just start by going over a surface. And I like to work in sections at a time. And I'm not too concerned about covering the entire area, because once you take your cloth, you can start to move that glaze around to the areas where you didn't touch it with your brush. So I am just wiping it back with my cloth. And you can see it's giving me a variation in colors and finish, and you can see some streaks. Now you can get creative with this, and you can go sideways and up and down if you want just a different effect. That's completely up to you, but you can do that. And like I said, I like to work in sections because it does start to set up a little bit quicker depending on the climate and also on, the temperature of the day. So sometimes working in smaller sections, I feel like it just gives me a little bit more control over the application. Now I painted this table, and I would say you would want to give the chalk paint a little bit of time to cure on your table before you start this kind of application. And it's really a personal preference. I would say wait about an hour, hour and a half. This table I've painted a few days ago, so the paint's really dry and it's cured. So I don't have to worry about pulling any of the paint finish off my surface when removing some of the glaze. Okay. And then you just want to keep going in that same kind of process, just wiping it back. Now some people may want to leave this on a little bit longer if you want more of the white to show, or you can, like I said, water it down just a little bit so that the white isn't as drastic on your surface. It's really a personal preference. And I always tell people, practice on another surface before you start for the first time on your piece of furniture, just so you can kind of get the hang of it and you can get a feel for what the product is like and how it's going to behave. Okay? So as you can see, it's a very, very easy process. If the glaze starts to set up a little too quick for you and you cannot remove as much as you'd like, you can always go with a spray mister, a very fine spray mister, and spray down your surface so that you can move the glaze around a little bit more. Another trick you can do is go over your painted furniture with Classic Seal and let that cure for a couple hours, and then go over it with your glaze. That'll help move the glaze around a little bit more as well. So just a couple little tips and tricks you could try. And you can also practice on a piece with those other products as well. But you can see we're getting an amazing finish. And then once this dries, it's gonna look absolutely stunning. Now, once you've applied it and you're all done with your piece, you are gonna wanna seal the glaze afterward. You can seal with Classic Seal, you can seal it with wax, or you can seal it with armor as well. Another little tip that I wanted to mention, and now this time I'm gonna use a little bit of a smaller brush for the edge of this table. It has a little bit of a groove here where the top and the sides meet. And I really wanted to enhance that little groove because I would like for the glaze to sit within that little groove. So what I'm going to do is make sure that I concentrate on applying the glaze on that surface there where those two places meet. So then when you wipe it back, it's really going to enhance that line and give it a little bit of depth and dimension within that area, which is really, really beautiful when you're finished. So I'm just going over and I'm just wiping it back, and you can see that it is concentrated within that groove there. So it's gonna look really beautiful. And here I've done a little bit here before I applied it over here, just so you can see exactly what I mean. So that's a fun little tip just to enhance some of the features of the furniture. Just leave some of the glaze where those furniture designs are located. Okay, next up is going to be the black glaze. Now this is a very highly concentrated color, so it does go on very, very dark. So if you don't want it to be as dark, you can do two things. You can mix a little bit of the white glaze with the black, and you can make your own custom gray. Or you can just simply add a little bit of water to the black glaze, and that will give you a lighter shade of the black tone. And it actually comes out as a distressed gray. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is just with the black applied and wiped back. And I painted this over, or glazed over, the mushroom color by Granny B's Old Fashioned Paints, okay? So I simply applied the black, removed it, and this is the effect I came out with. For this side, you can see it's a little bit lighter, okay? You can see the darker shade here, lighter shade here. This is the side where I mixed a little bit of water in with the black glaze, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate right now the application. And I don't even feel that I need to decant this. I can just go right ahead and go into this bottle because I'm using a smaller brush. And I'm going right over it, just like this. And you can see how dark it is. So this can be a little bit intimidating. But once you get the hang of it and you start practicing, it won't be as intimidating. So you can see there how it just came off very smoothly. And also, if you want the shade to be a little bit darker, you can leave it on a little bit longer. I tend to wipe back the glazes as soon as I apply, and some people may want to leave them on and let them cure for just like 30 seconds to a minute, and then go back and remove. And now you can see all those beautiful details in that frame, okay? And I was careful, I didn't add a lot of the black. So even this version of not being watered down at all still gives you a different shade. See, it matches the watered down version because I didn't cover the entire thing. Now for this side, I will add a lot more, okay? Where I'm almost, well, I am completely covering the surface. Okay, so you can see I'm applying a lot more glaze. I'm adding it a little bit thicker. Okay, and then I can go and let this rest and then wipe it back when I feel that it's been on there and cured a little bit. So really you can get some various shades just from the application and removal. So I'm not removing as much because I want it to be a little bit darker. I also applied more of the glaze, and it is on there a little bit darker than the side here where I didn't apply as much, and I removed it right away. So you can see the difference. But the black, I think, is absolutely stunning. It's really gonna make the details pop out of your projects, especially if there's a lot of fun details within your project. Okay, so now I have this really beautiful headboard that I've been working on, and I've painted this headboard in vanilla cream. Now I'm going to apply the aged glaze. So the aged glaze is one of the brown tones. And I also mentioned before we have the antique glaze. So that's a little bit of a darker, warmer brown than this one here. And this, I just want it to be a very light, kind of aged effect. And it is appropriately aged glaze. And for this particular piece, I do want it kind of on the lighter side. So what I am going to do is just mix it a little bit with some water, just a tiny bit. And that's just gonna make it go over my surface a little bit smoother. So I'm going to just stir this up really, really well. And this is also gonna give me a little bit more time to work on the surface before the glaze starts to set up, okay? And the application is identical to the last application I just did with the white glaze. So I'm just going to pull that glaze over the surface using my brush. Now I'm really going to concentrate again in some of these corners because I would really like for that glaze to show up a little bit darker to enhance that aspect. Now I'm going to take my t-shirt and just pull the color. Okay, and you can see that it's just looks absolutely beautiful over the lighter background. And again, I'm just working in sections so that I have a little bit more control over the finish once I remove some of the glaze. Okay. And I'm just pulling that glaze away, and I'm going in the same direction except at the ends, because at the ends, when you have a little bit of a lip, you're going to have to just kind of go from one end and then start from the other end and go the other way. I hope that makes sense. But you can see how beautiful it looks over the lighter color. And this would just look stunning on something that's highly detailed. You can let some of this glaze just pull into the design elements of the piece. And you're really going to be happy with the effect. Now, if you find that you remove too much or you're not happy with it, you can go over it again with a second application, make it maybe just a little bit darker, or play around with the shades a little bit. And like I said before, you can take a water mister and just kind of lightly spray And that also helps you pull a little bit more color off if you wish. And I'm really, really happy with how this looks. So that is the aged glaze effect. And the antique glaze is going to give you a very similar aged look, but just in a darker shade. And you can see how beautiful that looks. Okay, this is the segment of our video where we talk about SCUMBLE. So a lot of people have a lot of questions about SCUMBLE and how to use it, so I'm going to explain to you right now what an amazing product it is. It is a water-based medium that you can use to make your own glazes. And that means that you can use any of the colors from the Granny B's old-fashioned paint line to create a custom glaze for your pieces. It's so amazing, and it gives you so many opportunities and color choices that the sky's the limit, okay? So what you want to do is choose your color, and you're going to do equal parts SCUMBLE and paint color. And you're going to mix them together in a container. And I do like to add just a little bit of water sometimes because it depends on the color of the paint. Sometimes the paints are a little bit thicker and sometimes they're a little bit thinner. So I add just a little bit of water, and that helps smooth things out and spread it over your surface evenly and very nicely. Here I have a stool that I've painted in mushroom, so that's my base color. And what I'm going to do next is apply my glaze from the SCUMBLE, just as I did with the Amazing Glazes. It's the same process. It's just going to open up a whole world of color choices for you to glaze with on your pieces. Thank you so much for watching our beginner's video on how to use our SCUMBLE and Amazing Glazes. We hope that you learned a lot about the applications and the quality of the products by Granny B's Old Fashioned Paints. To see these and many, many more things that we have to offer for your furniture painting needs, please visit grannyb.co.za and be sure to follow us on Facebook.